All right, well, welcome everybody to MVP Office Hours. My name is Jared Kingston, and I'm a consultant with Aperio and head up the MVP Office Hours. If this is your first time on the Office Hours, it's really the community answers live. So we can take questions by just you speaking up. You can raise your hand in the web portion, or you can also post in the chat, and we'll just get to you as soon as we can. So because it is an open line, we just ask that you mute yourself so that we can hear questions and answers clearly as we go through it. With that being said, we have some MVPs on the call outside of myself. If I could have them raise their hands so I can easily pick them out here. All right, and MVPs, if you just want to give your name, who you work for, and your area of expertise, we'll start with Jackie.
Hey everyone, this is Jackie Travieso. I'm located in South Carolina. I'm an independent contractor. I've generally been working with startups and small businesses who generally self-implement or are looking for a quick implementation, and at the same time they're designing their business processes so they kind of go hand in hand. Where they're creating them at the same time as we're implementing Salesforce. So I usually focus on the Sales Cloud is where I kind of hang out in. So welcome.
Awesome. And Susan.
And this is Susan Fair. I am a consultant with Sogeti out of Omaha, Nebraska, and I specialize in Salesforce implementations, consolidating multiple orgs, and my passion and interests are in their campaigns and leads. So if you have any questions about that, hopefully I can help.
All right, awesome. Thank you, ladies. With that being said, let's go ahead and get started here. Who wants to kick us off with the first question? And don't be shy. No, but nobody has a question, huh?
It's a short meeting.
I put one in chat.
Who was that? What was that?
I just put it in chat, and I can talk about it.
Oh, yeah, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead, Dennis.
Okay, so working with an organization that has had Salesforce in place for several years, role hierarchy is gigantic and messy. It was created using really bad practices, roles that include managers' last names, employee ID numbers, stringing these things together, and has become unsustainable. So, for example, when new employees come in, they have an automated process in place that tries to put them in the right role, and of course, it doesn't work well because of all these idiosyncrasies that are even inconsistent across the company. So it's generally known that it needs to be redone. And the best practices that I've seen are fairly general in nature. Think written resources online. Don't create too. Use a sort of a don't use. You wouldn't want to use people's last names or employee ID numbers. You just want to keep them more generic, and you don't want to make too many. You don't want to have too few. So, my question is, what are the major steps involved with a complete revamping of a role hierarchy with these kinds of problems? Because there's reports that have been created, that are going to have to be redone because they reference these role names with these bad names and so on and so forth. So it's sort of like the approach, big picture approach, some of the major steps you would take as we begin to whiteboard out a completely new role naming structure.
Jackie.
Yeah, that's a tough. That's definitely a doable project. I would say break it down into smaller pieces. Understand that the role hierarchy drives the visibility into the data. So whiteboard your teams and how they report to each other, and or how those hierarchies need to drive visibility into the data, and then come up with a naming convention for those roles that are representative of those areas or those groups or teams, and then the functions, so that anybody who looks at your role hierarchy can easily say, this is a sales team, this is a service team, this is the East Division, this is the West Division under those respective teams. A role hierarchy does not have to exactly replicate, and generally does not replicate, a company org chart. You can start with your org chart to kind of figure out where you need to start, but it's really about who needs to see the data, how is the data shared, is it read-write or is it read-only, and then take an inventory of the reports that you were talking about that are shared, because I'm assuming that public groups drives the visibility into those. And as you map this out, and you get ready to redo this in your Salesforce, do you have a sandbox org?
Oh yes.
Okay, so you're on enterprise or above. So I would say start in your sandbox org. And one of the best practices I have is because we don't want to break anything as we're redoing this, right? And if we accidentally break something, we want to be able to backpedal into it so that those teams are not without access for an extended period of time. So one of the things that I always do is I take screenshots of the before, and as I'm retiring roles, I won't delete them. My best practice is anything that I'm getting ready to delete, I'll go into the role name or the field name and I'll put an X. That way when I go back to look at page layouts and I go back to look at different things, I can go, okay, this one I had intended to retire, but I don't want to delete it in case I need to dump somebody back into that because of something that nobody thought of or that we didn't understand a complete impact of. So I'm always about caution, moving in smaller steps, rolling out in little pieces or smaller manageable pieces, but being able to backtrack and reset quickly so that we don't impact that process and functionality and all that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, basically you're saying don't delete any of the old stuff until you know the ramifications on reports and stuff like that. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, because if you're to delete the role and you're using that particular role to grant access to reports or report folders, you're not going to know, if you delete it, it's going to be gone. You're not going to know, well, who do I need to give this to now? So do kind of like a stare and compare too. So inventory what you have now, what it needs to be, and that way you've got kind of a legend when you go back and you look at those reports and you could say, okay, well, it was sales team, or you said they were going by, John's team. Well, John's team is really East sales team, so I can go in and quickly change it from John's team to East sales team, and I know that that is correct.
Yeah, we've got the new naming convention, and now we're trying to anticipate all the ripple effects. So in addition to reports, are there other common things, objects, that are going to be impacted?
Yeah, look at your sharing rules. Look at your, let's see,
public group.
record type
List
circle.
Yeah.
List views.
Yeah. Yep.
Are you using forecasts right now?
Yes.
Okay. Your forecast would be something you'd want to look at as well.
Mhm.
Good point.
Do you have any custom code?
Yes.
Okay. I mean, some of the classes could be written with, hopefully not, but they could be written with role sharing lookups, and if they're written with text string versus IDs for looking up role sharing, it could cause a break there too.
And same with validation rules as well, if there's any that are based on roles.
Okay, great. So reports, sharing rules, public groups, list views, forecasts, custom code, including classes, workflow rules, and anything else you guys can think of?
I think we named everything that's in
Right?
Salesforce, didn't we?
Yeah, we did. I was just going to look on the App Exchange and see if there's something that can go out and look for all of these different, because I think that there is. I've heard someone talk about something. Jared, do you remember what Deepa was talking about? One of our last calls started with a P. Panaya?
Oh, Panaya, yeah. Yeah.
Is that a
Panaya,
tool?
yeah, that one would be interesting. I'm not sure if it would get to that level, but it does kind of do the thing where they call it the change guru, so you are basically submitting to it what you're changing, and it will tell you what all is going to be affected by that change so that you can review it.
Yeah, it's
And how do you
spelled
spell that out?
It's Panaya.
May I ask a question? Are we just talking about renames, or are you reconfiguring the entire role hierarchy as well?
It's a renaming mostly, but it's also a slight reconfiguration, consolidation.
Okay. The reason I ask is because a lot of this stuff gets picked up automatically on a rename because it's all hyperlinking. Your role associations to groups or sharing rules usually are tied that way. Reports are trickier because you might be having a text string lookup, but you should have. If it's renames, you're not going to have as much impact, but still want to make sure you use a fine-tooth comb through the whole thing.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Yeah, I don't know if Panaya gets down to roles. I don't see anything here that mentions roles. I'll put this link in chat. Jared, you can share it out with everyone. And you can also download this into your sandbox. So you should be able to get you can get a free trial, but you should be able to get a free extended trial in Sandbox. So make sure your Sandbox is current as you're trying to figure this out.
Awesome. All right, who else has a question? No questions, huh? Squire, you have your hand raised. Go ahead.
That's right. Just more of an experience situation. We have the need for a multi-select lookup on an object. Something to the extent of like how task allows you to associate with multiple contacts. I'm not familiar of any quote-unquote easy way to accomplish that. It would be on the campaign member record. Any suggestions?
So you're wanting to link multiple objects to the campaign member? Is that?
Yeah, effectively, we want to be able to track who made invitations to those members, and there might be multiple contacts or users that were involved with that invitation. And so right now we have a single lookup. We're just trying to think if there's an easy way without a significant amount of code to do a multiple lookup option on that object. I'm not familiar with one, so that's what I was wondering. and without using a related list, we'd like to be able to just pick multiples again, like how you can add multiple contacts to a task.
So in general, if you are looking to do multiple lookups for an object, you would do, your best bet is to do a related list, as you mentioned.
Yep.
Now, if you're going to have a limited number of kind of lookups on there, you could actually add multiple lookups and have them manually selected. So you could say related to user 1 or related to user 2, whatever it might be.
Mm-hmm.
And just add multiple fields. If you're looking for like a true multi-select, there's not a way that I know of, other than just because it's a text, a text value.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with one either. I mean, the challenge we've got is that it could be an unlimited number of people that want to be associated with said invitation, so multiple lookups aren't going to be an option. And from the related list perspective, it's already kind of difficult to get that data collected when you're adding the members. So to add another layer to every one of those members is going to cause a challenge as well.
Absolutely. So let me ask some other questions here. When you say that a user wants to be related to the invitation, I think you called it,
yep.
Tell me kind of your business scenario, what's happening in there.
Sure. So, I mean, very standard campaign usage. We've got say, an invitational golf outing or something. So we're adding all of our members to that invitation. And every member that's invited, we want to be able to reference which one of our business leaders made that invitation. And we're in a financial services group, so there's a lot of bankers involved with these interactions. And so we just want to make sure that everybody that has a kind of a touch on that invitation is tracked. More importantly, it has to do with, because there's so many business leaders, multiple people might invite the same person, and we don't want, say, banker A to invite a person, and banker B say, oh, he's already in the invitation list, and then later on banker 1 removes him. Banker 2 doesn't realize that it's been taken out because he checked to see that it was. So we kind of have like almost a dual process here where we want to be able to add and track who made the invitations, but also kind of error check during the process of the invitation flow.
Gotcha. Okay. And when banker A goes in to say, yes, I invited him or her, are they actually sending out an email? Are they adding them to the campaign? What are they doing, or what would you like them to do?
Yeah, they're just adding them to the campaign list. There's one bulk distribution, either a mailing or an email blast from that campaign that takes care of the delivery. It's more a matter of think about it more like future planning, like our July 1st outing. Everybody get your lists into your admins, and so there might be 10 admins logging dozens of bankers' invitations into this campaign. And at the end of the day, we don't want to lose anybody, but we also need to be able to track all of the requests so we know priorities and we don't step on each other's toes and things like that.
Okay, cool. I like it. My initial thought is I would consider adding a button or an action to the contact record that says invite to outing, whatever it might be.
Uh-huh.
And then when they push that button, behind the scenes, you're actually updating that campaign member and saying that banker A invited him. And then let's say banker B goes in later that day, pushes the button for the contact saying I'm inviting them, and then banker B updates them. So behind the scenes, I would be having a related list of all the bankers that invited him or her that you can then report on. But it's easy. It's all about making it easy for your end users.
Yeah, right. So let's solution that a little bit. So then, since you can't add a contact multiple times to the campaign, it would require some sort of code to actually in the background evaluate if there is a member, and if there isn't, create the member and the related list, and if there is, just create the related list. Is that kind of where you were headed with that?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. So you could, if they're assuming they're comfortable adding campaign members.
We just launched, so they're comfortable with everything and nothing.
Gotcha. So if you were to train them to go look at the contacts, see if they're a member of the campaign, if not, the first person would go and add them, and any subsequent persons would push a button next to that campaign member let's say you have a button on the campaign history section that says invite to campaign.
Mm-hmm.
And then that button would then add it to the existing campaign. And you could use, you should be able to use Process Builder to do that without code.
Okay. I like the sound of that. All right. It definitely would not, if we were doing some sort of mass member update from the standard member ad, it wouldn't address that. But those are less frequent than the add one at a time methodology. So I like the idea of what you're talking about. Let me take that as a research item.
Cool. Good
Thank
luck.
you very much. I always forget about Process Builder. You've been doing it the hard way for so long.
I know.
It's right there in your face, right?
Awesome. All right. Who else has a question? Feel free to. Oh, Jen, you have your hand raised.
Yes.
What's your question?
I do. We are using Nonprofit Starter Pack for the affiliations, and I was wondering if anyone knows how I can use that for the Mass Stay in Touch feature, because Mass Stay in Touch only looks at contacts, but I really want to know what the role is with regards to the accounts, so I can use them in the Mass Stay in Touch.
Susan, Jackie, any thoughts there?
I haven't used the package that she's talking about. I'm trying to think of other MVPs who are in the nonprofit that we could connect her with. Let me look up. Okay.
This is Susan. I have a question for her. A little bit about how her records are set up. When you say stay in touch to the accounts, are you using person's accounts?
No, we're using one-to-one accounts. Our model is one-to-one. So we have accounts, and then we have the contacts with their own one-to-ones, and they're affiliated to different organizations or accounts, and they have a role on that affiliation. So for instance, I want to send the Mass Stay in Touch only to those that are presidents in their organizations. I can't do it right now for some reason. It's just not pulling anything from affiliation.
Okay. And just to make sure I understand and we're on the same page, Stay in Touch, are you talking about the email that goes out and says, please update your information with your phone number and address? Okay.
Correct.
Yeah, I'm not aware of any way that can be done outside of a contact record.
Okay. Because in mass email, I can dump all these things from a report. I can dump them into a campaign, and I can use that campaign in mass email. But in Mass Stay in Touch, it doesn't seem like I can use the campaign, right?
Yeah, Mass Stay in Touch has a lot of limitations. For example, you couldn't change some of the fields on there. So if you had a custom field that you wanted to show up on the Mass Stay in Touch, that's not possible. So it's really, it is what it is. It's just pretty standard.
All right.
I would look at what I would look at sending out an email and having them reply back with any edits versus having them edit their records themselves.
Okay.
This is Beth. I on the foundation side. Do you have access to the hub?
I did, and I posted that question there as well, and I haven't. The only reply that I got was that to use form assembly.
Yeah, that's where my mind was going to. Similar to what the other person said. If you sort of step back from your environment and not necessarily think the Mass Stay in Touch feature itself, but more broadly, what do you want to do? Is you want your constituents to be able to update their information, particularly with the unique architecture of the starter pack. There are definitely other solutions to achieve that.
Okay.
Something like form assembly might be really good. You could also do it with an exposed.
Okay. We were going to build them a portal.
which wouldn't have the cost of form assembly if you're not already using it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Thank
So
you.
yeah, ask the question a bit more broadly in the hub and what other folks are doing within the SerpAc architecture to achieve that.
Okay.
Let me give you a name of another MVP who has some nonprofit Salesforce volunteer experience. She might be able to give you some additional information. Her name is Courtney House, and you'll find her in the community.
How do you spell her last name?
House.
Okay.
You might just send her a message and just say, hey, do you happen to know? And you can tell her that I gave you her name. This is Jackie Travieso. I'll give her a heads up, too, that someone might be reaching out to her.
Okay.
And what was your name?
Jen Laneson.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Awesome. Who else has a question? Who's next? Can you either raise your hand or just go ahead and speak up?
Communities question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Anybody building communities using site.com rather than either the Visualforce route or the standard templates? What was the experience like? I'm struggling with, I can build the functionality of the community and get the pages and so forth, but I'm struggling with that kind of more HTML side of things where it's make it look nice, put in banners and all the rest of it, and it's a bit of a bind. I wanted people's opinions on going down that route.
I haven't
Yeah,
built anything in sites myself. Go ahead.
So the
Yeah,
question is,
go ahead.
oh, no, you go ahead, Jared.
I was just going to say, I mean, I would say it's probably not recommended to go that route. I mean, you could, in essence, I mean, you're going to have to buy some licensing there, right? Either way, even if you build it through Force.com sites, you're still going to need licensing for that. The problem lies, right, is that, like you're saying, I mean, you're going to have to manage a lot of code in doing that in order to give it that complete look. So that would be my only caution. I've done Force.com sites pages before, but I've never tried to do it on that large of a scale. Mainly especially from a community side. So, were you gonna say something, Susan?
I was just going to say that when you're developing something like a community or a site, you really need to have somebody who knows how to do HTML. It's worth it in the long run. You just don't have someone on site to bring in someone to help you out.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody use the standard template that they've released for communities, the Napoli and the
Yeah, those are amazing, and those save a lot of time.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, I must have misunderstood the question.
No, I was just, the reason I wasn't going down the road of using the standard templates is they're great for setting up the header and the footer, but if you want to kind of build a secondary or second and third page based on those templates, it's really restrictive.
Yeah, trying to protect you from yourself.
All right, we have a next question here from Tony on test coverage. So you have your test coverage at 77%. However, you see some AppExchange packages that used to test successfully but are now failing, and they're sounds like they're managed packages. So I'll just go ahead and say that those shouldn't even actually count against your test coverage because they are managed packages. So it doesn't, in essence, it doesn't really matter whether they fail or not, or whether they pass or fail. They don't count against your test coverage. Does that help?
Yes, thanks.
Mm-hmm. All right. And Squire, you had some questions on some best practice with chatter?
Yeah, if it's a good time for it. It's two just kind of confirmations. So the first one is there isn't if you're in a standard feed like your personal feed or in a group feed, there's still no way to @mention a record specifically from that post, correct? I mean, if you want it related to a record, you have to start at the record. That's still the standard.
Yes. Yeah, unless you obviously put a link to the record in the post, yeah.
Yeah, like a URL link, but you can't @mention it. It will hunt it up, yeah. Okay, I just want to make
Correct,
sure that there wasn't anything that I wasn't aware of. The other question is one of the use cases we're having is that we have a real unique activity tracking system in place, and because of it, we can't send notifications to assignees or members when a task is created. So we're trying to come up with a really good way to notify members of a team associated with a record that something was, like a log a call or something was put on. And right now, they're generally adding a chatter post with @mentions to everyone that's a team member. And I'm just thinking there's got to be a better way. My thought is probably some sort of flow to create a post when certain activities are generated rather than do it the hard way, but I wasn't sure if anybody had any ideas there.
Yeah, you can. So I'll take this just because I had just done something similar. So yeah, you can do it like a couple different ways. So you can use the process builder to generate a post and @mention someone, or even @mention a group when certain things happen. So you can do that if you have rather somewhat simple business logic there within the process builder. If you want to be a little bit more dynamic in as far as who you mention, I've done something with the process builder as well as a flow, where in a flow you can do a chatter post. So you use the process builder to kick off that flow, and then within the flow you can @mention a user ID, right? So if you were like the scenario I use is I want to @mention the account owner of a related account, not necessarily the account related to the opportunity. Maybe I have another account related, and I want to @mention that owner whenever the account's added. Then I use the flow to go find that owner ID, and then you can just @mention that person in a chatter post using their ID. So there's a couple different ways of doing it. Again, it just kind of depends on how complex your logic is there, but it's definitely possible. And it's a really cool deal because, I mean, even though it's being systematically put in there and @mentioning them, they still get if they're getting their notifications of through email on when they're mentioned, then they'll still get those.
Excellent.
So, yeah.
All right. Thanks. That's what I needed to hear.
All right. All right, who's next?
Is there any flow training available anywhere?
Yeah, there's a lot of, there's videos that, when you go into the flow builder, there's also some really great, a couple good MVP bloggers that I could post out here. Were you going to say something, Jackie?
I was going to say we could check Trailhead. I haven't gotten that far in the Trailhead yet to see if there's any training on that. But Trailhead is awesome.
Yeah, I believe Trailhead does have some stuff in there. Let me post
There's
this.
a visual workflow implementation guide, which I went through and was quite helpful just to get the basic concepts.
I'm sorry, how did you say you got your basic concepts?
There's a visual workflow implementation guide that's a PDF off of the standard help. Try that as well as a good place to start. And there was a blog too somewhere.
There's also a Cloudflow Designer workbook that will actually give you a couple exercises. So it sounds like there's a bunch of different ways to pick up that info.
There's a hand training from Dream 2 years ago. The tool hasn't changed too much.
Yeah, I posted a bunch of links in there, or in the chat there. But yeah, there's a lot of different resources out there. There's also, like I said, there's a couple of the MVPs which I posted their blogs out there that are really heads deep and into doing a lot of stuff with Flow and Process Builder and blog about it. I think the Wizard News, he does it more, but there's some great stuff out there from them.
Yeah, Brian loves Flow, so that would be my recommendation as well. He's probably going to have a new hat for Dreamforce that just says Flow on it.
Yeah, he should. I don't know for sure, but I'm speculating that he'll talk about Flow at the Midwest Dreaming Conference this summer.
All right. Who else has a question? No questions? Got about 16 minutes left of help if anybody needs it. All right. Well, if nobody else has any questions, we will go ahead and end it early then. As always, if you have any feedback on the office hours or any suggestions for improvement, we'd love to hear it. So message me on the community or post on the MVP office hours page. I would love to hear your feedback. So with that, thanks for the great questions and the help from the MVPs, and we will see you next time.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.